Welcome to the Bill Cartwright Show. Our special guest is NBA All-Star, NBA champion, Butch Beard. Butch, welcome to the show.
Well, you forgot one thing. Your coach. Your first coach. Your first coach is a pro. Come on, man. I got to be in there on that introduction.
That's right. That's right. And you did provide me with a lot of wisdom. I'm not sure if I really heard it all the time, but you did a great job. You're a really good coach of the team, along with Red and one of your favorite coaches, Hal Fisher.
There you go. There you go. You had the best of the old world and the new world at that time. Okay.
Yeah, that was special times, and we were young.
Yes, you were. Yes, we were.
Let's do this. Let's talk about you.
Mm-hmm.
I just want you to talk about, so we can get to know each other really quickly, where you grew up, and I want you to talk about mom and dad.
Well, I grew up in the country in Kentucky. I grew up in a little community of Hardinsburg, Kentucky. It's a dot on the map, Bill. It's about, it's 1,500 people. All right. Then I, went to the big city at Louisville and attended the University of Louisville with Wes Unseld. We were roommates for 3 years. And from there, got fortunate enough to be a professional player for 9 years. And getting into the coaching profession with Red was truly, it was remarkable because I didn't know if I had any more coaching or any more basketball in me. And for some reason, he saw a reason to get me into the coaching profession. And it took me not only from New York to be the head coach of the New Jersey Nets at that time, from 94 through 96. And I was with Jim Clemens as an assistant coach in Dallas. I was with Garfield Hurd as an assistant coach with the Washington Wizards. And those two guys I was teammates of, with Garfield up in Seattle and Jim Clemens, of course, in New York. And I ended up coaching two historical Black institutions, Howard University and Morgan State. Took Howard to the NCAA tournament in 1992, and they haven't come close since I left. So I guess I did a pretty decent job.
What I'm curious about is and then we'll get back to the NBA, is when you were a youngster, mm-hmm. because we never know, how did you ended up selecting Louisville to go to school? And tell me about some of your influencers. How did you learn how to play basketball? Because you're a really good basketball player to be able to allow you to get to Louisville.
Well, let's get to that latter question, okay? Being in a little small community, I played with older guys. Older guys selected me to play with them when I was in the 7th and 8th grade. We had one player in Breckinridge County who was very, very good. He ended up going to college, Berea College in the state of Kentucky. It's a D2 school now. He was the first Black to go to college from my little town. His name was Mac Duncan. He had a tremendous influence on me as far as being a basketball player. He used to tell me that, you could be as good as you want to. And I started to work to be a player by myself. My 4 years in high school, I had the keys to the high school gym. And I used to work it during the day. Back in the country, I lived in the city, so-called city, but there's country around me. It was nothing but a bunch of farms, and I used to cut tobacco to make a living in the summer. In the summertime, that's how I made my money for for Christmas and stuff like that. And so at night, the high school coach gave me the keys to the gym. And I'll never forget the first night that I was in the gym, just practicing myself. The county cop came in and was wanting to put me in jail because he thought I'd broken into the gym. So he called the coach, and the coach says he should have the keys to the gym. Okay. And I showed him the keys. And so from then on, they left me alone for 4 years. I used to go in 9, 10 o'clock at night, stay until 12 and 1. And that's how that happened. Okay. Now, from there, I developed to be a pretty decent player. I will say that. Here's what I'll tell you, Bill. I was a hell of a high school player. Now that I, look back on it, I was a hell of a high school player. I really was. Because the coach never back in the day, he didn't run a play for me. I was good at getting defensive rebounds and running the break, and that's how I scored. Scored by pulling up, shooting jumpers, or getting to the hoop and things like that, okay? So it never ran a play for me, all right? So to average over 20 points a game for 4 years, you have to be pretty good at what you do, okay? So I consider myself a hell of a high school player. Now, my junior year in high school, we played in the state tournament, we played against Wes Unseld. And he was from Louisville, Kentucky, Seneca High School, and they beat us. And he was the best player I ever played against. And of course, he was much bigger than me. And I had to guard him. I was 6'3", 165 pounds. And he was as big as, you went against him, so you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And so by playing against him, I felt that, man, I'd rather play with this guy than against someone like him. So he attended the University of Louisville. I never knew that there was a University of Louisville until he went there. And I went in for a visit. We talked. I told him he was the best player I ever played with. And from there, we struck up a relationship. And that's the reason why I attended the University of Louisville. And we were roommates for 3 years. So that is the shortness of it, but that's how it all happened. Okay.
Wow. That's amazing. So as you guys are leaving school, talk about your mindset and the draft. Did you have a sense of where you're going to go?
The draft, God.
Draft.
Hey, draft. You're looking at the 10th player chosen in the draft. You were a high draft pick. I ought to know. I was there for that. Okay. I was actually at U of L working out. I was staying at my aunt's house to finish up getting my degree. I come to her house after the workout. She said, the Atlanta Hawks just called you. I said, the Atlanta who? The Atlanta Hawks. They said they drafted you. I said, no, come on. She says, no. They left this number. That's how I found out about the draft. The 10th player in the draft. And it was the same year that Kareem was number 1 and Neil Walk was number 2. I was the 10th player chosen. That's how I found out about the NBA. Okay, buddy?
Found out through your aunt in a phone call?
Yes.
Wow. So the draft processions were different, or you just didn't go, or people didn't
no
go
it was entirely different than Bill. It was different even when you got drafted. Back when I got drafted, they were drafting they had as many rounds. They had 10 rounds. They were drafting 10 people. Because I remember when after I got drafted and I went to Atlanta, and Richie Guerin, I don't know if you know as a Knick, he's one of the all-time great Knicks. He was my coach, and I'll never forget. We were, we had practice and everything else, and I'm in these drills, and I'm, trying to impress him. He said, "You've made the team. You don't have to be doing this." He said, "You don't have to go on every drill." So that's how I found out about the NBA. Okay.
So talk about your first team. You talked about the coach. Who was on the team?
Well, now I'm going to tell you Walt Hazzard, Lou Hudson, Bill Bridges, Joe Caldwell. Well, Zelmo Beatty was there and they traded him, and then we got Walt Bellamy. Well, let me tell you about how this all came about. Okay, so I'm drafted and I come to Atlanta, and as a rookie, you're treated entirely different than you are now. Okay, so you had to prove your stay with the veterans. I'll never forget. It was actually Walt Hazzard who helped me to be a professional. I roomed with him. He put me in a routine about pregame meal. We ate at the same time. We always rested. It was really interesting how here's what he told me. He says, you don't have to like your teammates, but when you step across those lines and for those 2 hours, you have to like them in order to be successful. Now that helped me to become a professional, because later on when I was there, Joe Caldwell, Jumpin' Joe Caldwell, played at Arizona State, still out there in Phoenix, as a matter of fact. He was holding out for money, and Walt Hazzard had a party, and I had never met Joe before in my life. And so Walt introduces Joe and me, and he says, Joe, this is Butch Beard, the first round pick. So I stick my hand out thinking he's going to shake my hand, say, welcome aboard, bro. He looked at me and said, you damn rookie, you're getting my money. I said, oh, hell. Oh, I said, oh, hell. Oh, hell. Oh, what the hell is going on here? But that was all part of an initiation, because later on, Bill, I wasn't playing much. And Richie came to me and he said, Walt is logging a lot of time. He says, I'd like for you to start to play. And if we had 2 out of 3 nights or 3 out of 4 nights, that 4th night, I knew that I was going to get about 20, 25 minutes. And that's how my career started. And I'll never forget, we were playing in Kansas City. Joe Caldwell, I helped him win a game. Joe Caldwell stood up in front of everybody in the locker room. He said, he's not a damn rookie anymore. He's a part of us. So that meant, I'd grown up.
Nice. So now how long did you play in Atlanta?
I played in Atlanta 1 year.
1 year?
Then got drafted. Remember, the Vietnam War was going on. I got drafted in the Vietnam War. I spent 15 months at Fort Knox. And then they had back then an expansion, and the Cleveland Cavaliers picked me up. And that's when my career started to take off. I took an early out.
Well, let's talk about that real quick. You got drafted. That's, I forgot about that. So what was that like? You got drafted.
Oh,
yeah. You had to go through that.
No, back then, with the war in Vietnam the way it was, they were drafting people, and my number came up. As a matter of fact, we were in the second round of the playoffs. Walt Hazzard had gotten hurt. I started the game for us against the Lakers. I had scored my career high in that particular game at that time. I had scored 22 points in that game. I actually hit a jump shot thinking that we were going to win the game, okay? And I'm going to bring up a name that maybe some older people will know. John Tresvant played for the Lakers at that time, ended up hitting a damn jumper over in the corner that beat us by 1. I go back to the room. My wife called and told me I had just gotten drafted by the United States Army. I had to be in Kentucky, and the rest is history. We lost that round. I came back to Louisville, Kentucky, and Next thing you know, I was in Fort Knox.
To be drafted. So you had to go through all the, whatever you go through as far as.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. So what did you have to go through?
So here's how it went, Bill. When I went back to Louisville, went down to the draft board, you had to give up your card, okay? And there was 7 of us at that time. I had a bad back. So I was trying to use that as a way of getting out. I went out to Fort Knox. I drove out to Fort Knox, went to see the doctors, and they told me, they said, yes, you do have a bad back, but it's not going to keep you out of the Army. All I remember was getting in the car and driving back to Louisville. I had just gotten married, and I'll never forget, I told Ruth Ann, I said, I got to go to the Army tomorrow, okay? And the next day, I reported to the draft board in Louisville, and the recruiting sergeant gave me everybody's papers. We got on the bus and we drove out to, the Fort Knox, stepped off, gave them to the drill sergeant out there, and the rest is history.
So how long were you really in the
15
Army?
months. 15 months. 15 months. 15 months, and I'm lucky as all get out, because for whatever reason, the word had gotten out at Fort Knox that I was there. Everybody that was in my company that wasn't in the National Guards or the Reserve, everybody went to Vietnam as infantry when they got their orders after basic, okay? I was the only one that stayed at Fort Knox. And there was an old woman in basic that took care of the commissary there for the families and stuff. I'll never forget the first time my father came out, my mother came out to see me. He came over to me, my father came over to me and asked me, well, what would you like to do? Are you want to go to the war or what? I mean, this lady, her name was Ma Collier. She says she can prevent you from going to Vietnam. You will stay, in the States or do whatever. I said, I don't want to go and be shot at. Okay. And so when the papers came down, I was the only one in my company that didn't go to Vietnam. Then you got your orders. You went to Fort Polk to complete your rest of your training. And then the next thing, you're on your way to Vietnam. And so I stayed at Fort Knox. And here's what I did, Bill. The post commander happened to be a relative of what was it? George Scott he was a military guy. Well, God, I forget. But Patton, he was one of General Patton's relatives. He was the post commander. He came to me and he says, look, the first Army tournament is going to be held in basketball. It's going to be held at Fort Knox. There's a brown jug. We've never won it. I want that jug. That's what you got to do for me. And I did. I ended up averaging 42 points a game. We got that jug. Okay. Really? We got that jug. But that was my Army experience. And then I got an early, there was a time that you could get an early out. I was told by my sergeant major of my battalion that I could get an early out, and that I got the early out, went to Cleveland, and the rest is history.
That's amazing.
It is amazing.
So you leave and you go to Cleveland. Now, was that an expansion team at that time?
It was an expansion team. I get to Cleveland. Now, here's what I did, Bill. I never took any time off in the 15 months that I was in the Army. I had days, accumulated that I could take some leave. So when I knew I was going to get the early out, I took those days and went to Cleveland's camp, and Bill Fitch was the coach. Back in those days, you were in camp for a month. Okay, you did 2-a-days. I mean, it was brutal back in the day. Okay, so I go to camp, and Bill knows I'm going to get an early out. The team, they didn't particularly like Bill, so they make me the captain. When I get back, when I leave the Army and come back to Cleveland, they name me captain of the team to deal with Bill. And so, yeah, so that was it. I made the All-Star team that year, Bill.
Wow. So who were some of the guys on the team?
Bingo Smith. We had Walt Wesley, John Warren. I mean, all of us journeymen trying to find our way. John Johnson, who played, at Iowa, who also helped the Seattle Supersonics win a championship. JJ and I, we were all-stars. So we go to LA and play in the All-Star game. Okay. I walk in that locker room, and there's Walt Frazier, Earl Monroe, my ex-roommate, Wes Unseld, Dave DeBuscher. That's the first time I ever met Red. All right. And I'll never forget. So Red, I'm sitting here in awe of everybody. Okay. I'm in awe of everybody, right? So Red says, I need a rebounder. So DeBuscher says, how many rebounds do you need? He says, I need at least 15 rebounds from my top rebounder. So DeBuscher says, so what happens if, whoever that is, what does he get? So Red says, what do you need? Well, Dave says, you can have a 6-pack over here in the locker room for me. And he went and got him. He went and got him, baby. He went and got those 15. He went and got them. Okay. And Red had his 6-pack over there when we walked in. It was wild. And we lose the game. Jerry West hits a running 55-footer to beat us by a point. And back then, that was worth $1,500. That was a lot of money.
So how long were you in Cleveland?
1 year.
1 year.
Then comes the real craziness of my career. I get traded in between that 1 year in Cleveland. I go back to Louisville for that summer. I actually go to school and finish up getting my degree. I had 9 hours to go, and I end up getting my degree. And thinking I'm going back to Cleveland, I'm in the car. I'm getting ready to get in the car and leave to go to Cleveland to get ready for camp, right? The phone people were supposed to have cut off the phone, but didn't. The phone rings, I pick it up, and it's the Seattle Supersonics telling me that they had traded for me, and they had traded Lenny Wilkens. Now, my furniture is on its way to Cleveland. All right. I got to get in touch with now, the moving people to stop them, tell them to, I'm going to, Seattle. I get on I have to change all transportation mode. Had to ship my doggone cars there from Louisville now to Seattle. My wife is pregnant with our second kid. And I fly into Seattle, and it was on a Sunday. And thank God I had a guy who I played against in college, Lee Winfield. He had played at North Texas State. He also played for the Seattle Supersonics. He picks me up at the airport, and I read the paper, and like all hell had broken loose. Like I made the trade for Lenny. I mean, the people hated me. I had a tough year in Seattle. I had a tough year. I had ground beef, like put all over my car. I mean, it was wild. It was wild. It was wild. It was really wild. So that was my experience. That was my 1 year experience in Seattle, because I got traded for Lenny Wilkens, who was also the player coach. And supposedly they didn't tell him about it, and the people took it out on me.
So who was the coach at that point in time, and who were
a guy by the name of Nasalki, Tom Nasalki. He had done well in the old ABA, Utah Jazz. Okay, he had done well. So, second day in camp, he comes to me. He says, "What play would you like to run?" What do you mean, what play? That makes you feel comfortable. I said, I don't know. I'm just trying to, understand your system here. So it was the most chaotic situation in the world. We had Spencer Haywood, John Brisker, who is dead now, okay, who played in the old ABA, Jim Fox, and Dick Snyder, myself, Lee Winfield, and Bill. It was so chaotic, it wasn't even funny. Of course, you've heard of Downtown Freddie Brown.
Of course.
Wouldn't have been a Downtown Freddie Brown if I don't get traded, because Lenny was the coach, and his rookie year, he didn't even play it. And so when I get there, all hell breaks loose. And lo and behold, we end up with a Downtown Freddie Brown. They started to play him, didn't play me. And the people in Seattle hated me. I mean, it got so bad when I go shopping. Here, I'll give you an example. So our second kid is born there. My wife is at the apartment, and I take my youngest one to go get some food. She says, go to the store, get some food. So I'm at the grocery stores at the Albertsons, okay? At an Albertsons in Bellevue. And this guy walks up to me and he says, "You're Butch Beard, aren't you?" I'm having a tough year. You'd think the guy would say, "Well, hang in there, it's going to be okay." Standing in front of me, my kid's in this doggone shopping cart. He says, "You know what? You suck." Now, it takes all my willpower, okay, not to take this doggone, and just this cart and run over it. So I had to take my son, put him in my arms, go back, get my wife, and says, "Baby, I'll have to take you back to the store. I'll tell you where where the cart is." And she came back and, she got the food. But that's what my year was like in Seattle. It was truly unbelievable that the people took out everything on me, and I was just following my contract.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. So, how long were you?
A year.
1 year.
Everything is a year, Bill. Everything is a year. So I get through that, and I go in. We play Phoenix, the last home game of the season. And before that, I go in and tell the organization, "You all either trade me, because I can't play here in Seattle, or I'm going to quit." And I had 3 years left on my contract, okay? And it was all guaranteed. It wasn't a lot of money, but it was guaranteed. And so the last game at home, the last game of the season, my family and I slept in Portland, Oregon. I just wanted out of the state of Seattle. I just wanted out. So after the game, I jumped in the car and went to Portland, and that's where we slept. We drove to Portland. I just needed to get out. And lo and behold, over the summer, I get traded to Golden State for no other than the guy who taught me how to be a professional, Walt Hazard. He was with Golden State. They shipped him back to Seattle.
So talk about your time with Golden State. I know about it because it was a great time for you. And,
greatest time, man. Greatest time. When I got there, I was the youngest guy floating on that ball club at that time. You had Rick Barry, You had Clyde Lee, Jeff Mullins. Of course, you had Nate Thurman, Joe Ellis, who is a San Francisco guy. But they were all a little bit older. And Jim Barnett. And I didn't start. Al started to play me the last 30 games of the season. And then the last 17 games, he started me. And I averaged about 18 points a game. Okay. I'll never forget. Nate liked me. Nate loved me. And I loved Nate. Nate used to tell me, he said, you can gamble, you can do anything on defense. He says, I'll cover up for you. And Nate Thurman, my God, there's no telling how many shots he blocked, with me gambling and trying to do whatever. I always made sure he got shots, though, okay? I took care of him early on, So I really missed the big fellow. And then the second season, they traded Nate for Clifford Ray. And for whatever reason, to this day, we talk about it all the time. I mean, this group, the group that won the championship in 75, we're still pretty close. We talk. How Clifford Ray and Rick Barry became buddies, I don't know. I mean, it's about as much of it's opposite as you can get, but they bonded. And I'll never forget in camp, we went to camp down at Menlo Park, and I'll never forget Clifford saying to us, we were in the shower, in the dressing room, and just talking. And he said, we could be pretty damn good. He said, but we all know we only have one superstar. And everybody knew that Rick was the superstar. We got lucky with the two kids that we drafted, Jamal Wilkes and Phil Smith. We got extremely lucky. They could play, okay? They could really play. And so Al put together a ball club that he played 10 people. We all, everybody kept their ego, at the door. And we let Rick do his thing. But we could play. We could really play. And here comes the caveat of all. They traded Jim Barnett just before the season started, because Jim Barnett and some people that are probably listening out there now, Jim Barnett and Jeff Mullins they were the starting backcourt. And I'll never forget, Al came after a practice to Charles Johnson, CJ, who played at California. And he told us, he said, I'm going to start you two. And, Big Mouth, me, says, don't worry, it won't be, I said, I know you're going to catch hell for this, but we'll make you proud. Big Mouth, okay? Big Mouth. And so I told, because CJ didn't talk much. And CJ says, we'll just play. I said, you're right, but we'll be good. We'll be okay, big fellow. We'll be okay. And the rest is history. I mean, we really had a good ball club. We had a good vibe, which was that was the key to the whole thing. And of course, Rick was a superstar, but he liked Clifford. See, the 2 years I was there, Rick would always find a way to get hurt for about 8 or 9 games, okay? So the year we won the championship, he turned his ankle, and it was for real. I thought he could have come back a little bit sooner, but he didn't. He always found a way to hang around, do his thing, and then come and do, and play. So Jamal started to find his way, all right? And we won like 5 games in a row. Then Rick started talking about, I'm ready to come back and play, Al. I'm healthy enough after a practice. And I'll never forget, he left. And I was standing there with Al. I said, don't let him come back. Don't let him come back now. Let us play. Don't let him come back. And, Al didn't let him come back. We won 3 more games. We had an 8-game winning streak until he finally came back. And I think Rick realized that, that we could really play and help him to accomplish something that he wanted to do, and that was to win a championship.
So during that championship season, I can kind of remember that. I was in Sacramento. That was unexpected.
Of course it was.
I think you guys didn't even play at home, did you?
No, they played at the Coliseum all year long. And at the end of the year, they had booked the Coliseum out for the ice capades. All right. So we had to play the championship series in the Cow Palace. Never played there, never practiced there, never did anything there. Okay. My rookie year when I was with the Atlanta Hawks, that's where the Warriors used to play, in the Cow Palace. That was the last time I had, stepped foot in it. And you want to know something funny? Last night, watching the Golden State Warriors play Portland, they had old photos of the Warriors, right?
Yeah.
And they had an old photo of the Cow Palace and the cars parked, and this was during the finals. And I saw my Mercedes parked out. I was rolling. I said, "Man, this is funny," because I had just bought a Mercedes, and I had Kentucky license plates, so everybody in the Bay Area knew who I was.
So how long were you at Golden State?
2 years.
2 years.
That was like a lifetime. 2 years. Okay. Every place else had been a year, and you're traded.
So then you ended up going back east.
Yep. Back to Cleveland.
Cleveland.
Yeah.
So who was coaching and playing there?
Bill Fitch was the coach then.
Bill.
He was the coach. I go back. I'm feeling pretty good about myself because, see, I've won a championship. So all I'm doing is waiting for that ring. All right. So I'm feeling pretty good. And Cleveland was trying to they played out at the old Richfield Arena. All right. And they were, starting to establish something themselves. And it got to the point that Bill had 5 guards, couldn't play all 5 of us. He didn't know what to do. So I became the odd man out. And it really upset me because I got traded on Thanksgiving Day. We had a game Thanksgiving night. We had practice that Thanksgiving pregame that, shoot around that morning. I hadn't seen my family. My wife came up with the kids, and she was cooking Thanksgiving dinner, for us. So this is the first time I had seen them. They go to the game, and I'm walking into the arena, and Jimmy Rogers, who same Jimmy Rogers as at Chicago, says, "Bill wants to see you." So I go up to his office, and he says, "I'm going to put you on waivers." And I look at him. "What the hell are you talking about?" He says, "I'm putting you on waivers." I said, "You could have told me that this morning. Why did you make me drive all the way back out here to the game to tell me that?" He says, "Well, I've been working on trying to see if I can trade you and, do some other things, and it's going to work out." And he wanted to come across behind his desk and, shake hands or what. I said, "Man, you touch me, so help me God." I said, "Either you're going to whip my what here, or I'm going to whip you right now. Don't you come near me." I said, "If I can't help you, who has never won a damn, championship, I can't help you win a game, and you do this to me now." He says, "Don't worry." He says, "You're going to get drafted. You're going to get picked up. It's already done." I didn't, I was worn mentally. I was worn out. So I go back downstairs and go into the locker room to get my stuff. They had already put it in a box. I'm out of there. You know what I'm saying? I see Nate and I see Garrett, who they had traded me, for. And I see them already in the locker room. And I go back and have Thanksgiving dinner. My kids don't understand it. I'm despondent, the whole 9 yards. I move out of Cleveland, go back to Louisville, and a week later I get a call from the Knicks, and that's how you ran into me. Really, that's how I became a New York Knick. They picked me up, and I don't know what Red saw in me as a coach, or if I could be a coach, but he saw something, and he kept me around, as a player when I got, he wasn't even there when Willis them, let me go, and Sugar and them were there. I was the oldest player at 31 years old. And then Willis gets, he gets fired, Red takes over, and I'm at the barbershop. And he calls my house, and I think he wants me to come back to play because I feel I got, at least a year or two left in me. And he asked me if I wanted to be a coach. I said, I have to think about it. And he says, well, let me know. And I called him back 2 days later and met him in Cleveland, and the rest is history.
So now you're coaching. So talk about that. What did you learn your first year coaching?
Well, you may not have known it. And because, when you just get into the business, you're trying to find your way. You're trying to find your little niche in order to, to stay. You may not have liked Red as much. Red with his old grandfather clock, he finding you $5 for being late and stuff like that. It was a game for him. It wasn't who he was. I found out that Red was not probably, because Al was honest too. Al Adams was honest. When Al sat down and told you what he thought, how you could help the team, he really meant it. And, if you did what he said, he was going to give you time. Red was that way too. Red brought in guys for camp. I'll get Mo Layton. I don't know. Do you remember Mo Layton?
Sure.
Huh?
I don't know him well. I know him a little bit. Okay.
He brought guys in for camp, okay, to get Clyde in shape, or Earl in shape. Now, they were always the last guy, like a Mo Layton was always the last guy cut. People couldn't even figure, but he had a guaranteed contract for them for camp. I mean, that's who he was. And he would tell them, look, you come and do your job. This is what happens. Mo did eventually hook on and play a couple of years with the Phoenix Suns because of that. Red, that's what Red was. It's hard for you to see it now because you were young and you couldn't understand. He was fair, Bill. He was really a fair individual. And I used to sit over there when you all were playing. I'd be close enough to him, and I'm always asking. I would be asking, why did you substitute, Cartwright when you did? And his loving way, his loving Jewish way, he would say, look, asshole, it's bad enough that I have to coach the game. Do I have to explain the reason why I'm coaching it to you? So, when we would be on the road, I never spent so much time with an individual trying to figure out how to be a coach. And he was very good. He would really give you information. He would tell you what he was thinking, how he went about things. And so how he looked at certain players. We had the all black team there in New York. Now, you don't even have a clue how that even happened. Every day in camp, we go up to his suite, sat down, write down the 10 best players. Hal, write down the 10 best players, Butch. I'm going to write down the 10 best players. We all came to the conclusion They were the 10 best players in camp. So when it was time to make cuts and really have the team, I said to Red, Red, you know what you just did? This is an all-black team. This has never been done in the NBA. He says, Butch, I don't care if they're all green. This is the best team that we have. These are the best players. And see, the players know when the best players are on the team. If we don't have the best team roster-wise, they won't play for you. Think about it. They won't play for you. And so I learned those types of things from him, which was really invaluable later on for me, and especially in college, because I used a lot of his philosophy, especially when I was at Howard University, and how I treated those kids.
We'll talk about that as you went on to Howard. Just as far as being able to recruit, being able to find money. I mean, your responsibilities were off the chain.
Oh, they were off the chain. But the big thing was getting the job. I got the job. I was with the New Jersey Nets at the time as an assistant coach with Bill Fitch. Bill Fitch was driving. He was killing me. I was the only assistant coach he had. I used to go scout, come back, be at practice. I mean, no sleep whatsoever. So I get a call from, of all people, John Thompson. John Thompson calls me up. He says, I'm calling you because, he says, there's an opening at Howard University. The president is a friend of mine, Dr. Jennifer. He said, Jaron Jackson, who he coached and played for him, at Georgetown, tried to make the ball club before he made it in San Antonio, excuse me. It's San Antonio. He was a San Antonio Spur later on and had a good career. I tried to help Jaron make our ball club. I would stay after and, work with him. Jaron says that you're a good guy. I said, yeah. I said, I tried to help Jaron. He should have actually made the ball club, blah, blah, blah. He says, well, this job at Howard is not a great job. He said, if you get the respect, he says, if you get the backing of the president, you might have a chance to win. So I thought about it. I go to Fitch and I said, look, I have an opportunity for an interview at Howard University. I'm going to go to it. So I go down and I get in touch with Big John. I get in touch with him now. Okay. I talked to him. Then he told me about, what I should expect. And after the interview, I hadn't even talked money or anything else. I told Dr. Jennifer, I said, if you want me as your head coach, I'll be your head coach. Okay. He said, okay. So 3 days later, they have my press conference, and Dr. Jennifer introduces me at the press conference. And so everybody at Howard University knew that I was the president's boy. Okay. Don't mess with Coach Beard. All right. They used to say all the time, when Coach Beard is headed over toward the administration building and he's got his head down, he's on his way to the 4th floor. And they knew where that was going. And they were just about right, because I needed something. As I told Dr. Jennifer, I said, I'll never come to you unless I need something to try to do what you want done. Okay. And as he told me, he says, I would like to, see one of my teams, see the team go to the NC2A tournament. I said, I'll do everything in my power to see if I can do that. I said, but when I come to you, I'll need that, whatever it is I'm coming to you for, to try to see if we can get there. And so that's how I was able to survive at Howard University and pull off what I did. Now, my first year there, I told those kids, They had only won 2 games a year before. And we won 8 games my first year there, 6 in a row to end the season. And I kept telling them, we're going to the NC2A tournament. They thought I was crazy. They'll tell you to this day, he was out of his mind. So after I won those 6 games in a row to finish the season, I told the coaching staff, I said, I've changed the culture. I said, they're ready now. The following year, I'm telling you, Bill, to get them ready, you wouldn't want to be in, my pre-draft camp is what I call it. Because for 6 weeks, we never touched the ball. It was all physical. Because I was running, I ran back then, lifted weights. I ran with those kids. I lifted weights with those kids. And if I beat those kids, and I tried to beat them, if I beat them, we practiced at 6 a.m. in the morning because that was the best time for me to get to gym. Nobody would be in the doggone gym. I had the gym to myself. So if they didn't do what they had to do, they met me at 4 o'clock and still had to practice. Okay. So it got to the point that they started to understand what I wanted. Okay. Now, my first 10 games of that year, I had to go out and make money for the school. And we lost our first 10 games. But we kept getting better and better and better. I took from every tape something good, not all bad, something good to show them, see, the system is good. The system is good. You're getting better at it. You did this for 10 minutes instead of 2 minutes, They kept on and they started to believe. And then we go down and we beat the University of Miami. And Leonard Hamilton had just taken the job down there, and they were a Big East team. I beat the snot out of them. And I told them, hey, look, I told you, you guys can do, you can win the MEAC. And from then on, they kicked in. We won 14 games in a row. And here comes the caveat. In the championship game of the MEAC tournament, we were down 10 with 8 minutes to go. I called a timeout. I said, you guys have got to get within 4 with 3 minutes to go in order for me to take you guys to the NC2A tournament. I said, if you can get me to within 4, I will outcoach the guy down at the other end. So we got on a roll, and sure enough, with 2:30 to go, there was a timeout. He called a timeout. It was Florida A&M. They called a timeout. And my kids came in and said, okay, now it's up to you now. They outcoach. Okay. And we went ahead and took care of business and went to the NC2A tournament, because that's how much they believed in what I told them.
Can you talk about the differences of Howard and Morgan State?
They were both about the same. Howard, both of them. At Howard, you had a different group of kids. They were from a Howard class. They were like middle class kids, okay, as far as where they came from money wise. My budget at both places to recruit was $8,000. I never took any money when we recruited in July. I gave my assistant coaches, their expense. And then I had to try to figure out how do I, get a kid in for an official visit to make it look decent. So I had to use some of my money to get them in to do that at both places. Okay. And so that's how, you had to, work that. It was work at both places. I ran study hall. We didn't have the resources. I didn't realize I had to be a teacher. But I was able to do that. The big thing is I was able to get a group of kids at both places to believe in what I was teaching them. And the other thing, Bill, was that I was dealing with first generational Black kids that were going to college, and I didn't want to see them fail. And at both places, I was able to graduate 80% of the kids that I brought in. And I feel good about that.
That's awesome.
Okay, I feel good about that. They to this day, they call me. They're grown men. They have great jobs now, really good jobs, and they call me and they tell me even right now. I got one that's a doctor out in Sacramento. I have my manager, my trainer at Howard she's one of the best heart surgeons in this nation. And as she says, Kiva says, Coach Beard, I always thought you were crazy, but you really weren't that crazy after kind of figure you out. Okay.
Take it another direction real quick. Just talk a little bit. Now, I know this is going to be hard for you. Our current NBA.
Oh man,
just a little bit, because I know this could be a long subject.
Oh, it could be. I'll try to make it short. I'm trying to figure out what the hell it is. First of all, you couldn't have played. See, I might have been able to still play, although I didn't shoot threes. So I don't know. I could go in the corner. I could hit that corner three if I'm standing there by myself. I might have been able to play. You, on the other hand, big fella, there is no way you could play. Okay, you couldn't post up in today's game. I don't know what we're watching. I have no idea. And I'm not against shooting threes. What I am against is every play has to be a 3-point shot. When you're not hitting the 3-point shot, they don't even have a backup plan. They even shoot faster. And this is where the analytics people, I think, are just screwing the game to no end. You can make numbers look as good as you want, okay? And that's what they're trying to do. It's ugly to watch. It's really ugly to watch. It's not basketball as we know it. It's not basketball as we were taught. I don't know what this is. It's entertainment for the novices who don't know that much about it. And they see these guys, hitting threes. And I'll come back. Golden State had us old guys out for a reunion just before they closed the Coliseum in Oakland. And I'll never forget sitting with Steph. And I told Steph, I said, Steph, God, I love you to death. I love you, what you and Clay, can do. I said, but you two guys have a skill. Every shot you shoot now is a bad shot as far as basketball is concerned, but you make it look like it's a layup because of your ability to shoot the ball. And every kid wants to do that, but they don't even know the time and effort that you put in, to be as good as you are. And that's what makes the game so ugly now. Everybody shoots a three, they don't make it. That's the problem. They don't make it. I was at a shoot around. I saw Steph and Clay that day shoot before they left, right? Hit 50 shots and leave. They did not count a score if the ball touched the rim. I'm talking about nothing but net. That's how good they are, okay? And so for us novice, we're just trying to put the ball in the hoop. We don't care how it goes in. It's still, a 3-pointer. They're that good. And so that's what's made the game so ugly to watch now. They couldn't even enter the ball to you now if you post it up. They don't even know they don't even know how to even get in a triple threat position to make that pass.
Hey, talk about your family right now.
Yeah, my kids are all grown. They're all old like me. They're grown. I have my daughter is she's in St. Louis. She runs a Nordstrom store there. One of my sons is he's in Augusta, Georgia. He was coaching his college that he graduated from, Payne College, and they ran into money and everything else with COVID. So, but he's still working, and he volunteers at a high school there. Okay, so he has a decent job. I have one son that works at Walter Reed Hospital. He's in rehab. He deals with our soldiers that comes back. He helps to rehab them. And I have another one in retail, like my daughter. And he's in the Washington D.C. area. So they're all there, and I'm in New York. I'm in Harlem, so it's all good. How I ended up in New York, I don't know, but this is where I am.
Well, Butch, thank you so much for being on. I've always admired you as a player, coach. We forgot commentator. You have really had a really special life. So thank you so much. And I could get to New York. We could hang out a little bit.
Well, hey, you can come up here. You can come to Harlem. You can come uptown. Okay, come up to the ghetto. We're doing okay up here.
I'm
all
not
right.
a ghetto anymore. It's expensive up there.
It is expensive up here. It really is. No, it is. I'm close to Walt Frazier and Earl Monroe. So we hook up at a couple of places and try to have lunch and talk about old times. The lives get better every time we get together. So it's all good. It's all good. I really appreciate seeing you. I'm glad we hooked up, and we'll stay connected. Okay.
Yeah. Easy. I love it.
Yes.